Hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the incredible great edition of Noor Riyadh. I think everyone here has probably had a chance to see most of the work, but there are over 120 works on Noor Riyadh. I'm excited to see most of them myself because with all of this, we're excited to kick off the talks here. My name is Ahmed. I'm a senior advisor with the Ministry of Culture and the Biennale Foundation. I've been an admirer and a fan of both of the artists that joined us today for this conversation. In fact, I wish you could all witness the conversation we had prior to coming here, where Carsten and Ahmed did a walk through the studio and talked about the method of production, got into very interesting, geeky conversations on the science of mirages and decimals, which I'll be talking to you about. And so with that, I'm very happy to introduce them both. I'll start with Ahmed Maatar, who most of you know, and he's a renowned artist here in Saudi Arabia. He is a physician by origin. Ahmed has really addressed and tackled the realities of contemporary life, not just in Saudi Arabia, but beyond. He explores collective memories, uncover and record unofficial history. Ahmed has been one of the most interesting observers of time passing in this state. And Carsten joins us, I think, what's most interesting is you participated in the Riyadh last year, but I believe this is your first time visiting the kingdom. Carsten is a world-renowned artist as well. He delves into science and human relationships. He explores human behavior, perception, varied states of consciousness, and plays on the size of natural elements, and especially the notion of time. All of these aspects we live under, and this is what I love most, kind of the laboratory of doubt. So both Ahmed and Carsten really question human realities and social interactions, and which I find also interesting. So if I could just kick off with Ahmed, and really I'd love this to be a conversation even with the audience, just so you guys can witness the conversation that happened earlier and talking about some of the works that are inspired by both of you and the dance between science and human interaction, science and poetry, what Ahmed likes to call. Ahmed, if you could give us kind of just a bit of a introduction to some of your works that are inspired by that background and has played with that interaction with contemporary concepts today.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you. So I would love to thank Riyadh Arts for being here tonight with you. Actually, we took explaining the process and the idea sometimes for an artist or art process, it's one of the most difficult things. It cannot be sometimes explained with words. That's why sometimes I say there is no classification that can be obtained or can be to be followed. So art process, sometimes I say, yes, it can follow scientific approach. Sometimes it can be, like intuition by human reaction or things. But sometimes, from that way I say it has to be poetic. In a way, it has to be poetic sometimes. And when I say poetic, with this a broad definition of life, that's why sometimes, sometimes it's difficult to say the artwork following this process trying to this process, is it scientific or is it art? And that's the beauty of art. It's philosophy. It's and maybe what I would explain that usually I say artist is like a cultural mining. So that fit with our time now. It's part of the time. So cultural mining is we have this job to find all of the information, data, knowledge, feeding, things that related to time, and we refine it, make it ready, make it accessible to our time now. Mentally, physically, it's kind of exploration and mining in a culture. I don't know if that's enough, but that's how I feel it. Maybe now, maybe if you ask me after 5 minutes, another definition is it, or any be. So that's how I explained it.
Yeah, and just Ahmed, one of the questions I think we were talking about earlier was also what are some of the works that define that interaction? Because I've come to Carsten as well. A lot of both of you have, the similarity that your work, your initiatives, some of the projects that you've done have been highly interactive and participatory. And I think what's incredible with Noor Riyadh is all of the works are interactive. The works come alive with that human interaction. So if you could just give me one of the artworks that have been inspired by the origins of the science and physician that in you, but also one that was really allowed people to interact with it and was inspired by that community engagement that you talked about.
As an artist, so I don't know. There is no one art, but if I will choose, maybe now, maybe I have an one artwork called the Yellow Cow, which is a social practice where I has to paint a cow with the saffron and keep it back in the things. Then after 2 months, I produce a production of milk, cheese, fake production to the market. It was a social practice to interact with people in perception. This was very engaged until and it was in 2003 and 4, and that was full of internet forum at that time, no social media. So maybe this is one of artwork that was, but I mean, sometimes it's the idea that can release and can make art people, and the idea of engagement be part of things. It's related to how people think and open the question. It's more opening the question. By the way, I like this art one. I find it. You were also talking about this artwork town earlier, and this artwork out there, and earlier both of the artworks. So I'd love to bring in out to Carsten with that and just invite you to talk about some of the artworks that have led you to this point. And Noor Riyadh, I know that you once described Africa and some of the inspirations that you had from the artworks that you did in Africa. You described it as a place of soul rather than a place of social or geographic realities. I'd be curious about also the inspiration of not just your works, but how the experience here, how you would describe it if someone asked you in a few years, what inspiration came from Saudi and any of your future works as well.
It's a lot of
I know
things
it's a complex.
Is this working? Yes. But also, thank you for having me here and giving me the chance to talk to you. And together with Ahmed, I just met you 30 minutes ago, but it seemed like a very good beginning, like you said. Where shall I start? I think I start with one thing that you said. You spoke about a job. I think it's quite interesting thing to say that we have a job. We have a kind of function. Maybe this is because we share this background of being, we had a real job, which is like, in my case, I was a scientist. And then I still think as having a job. But it's not somebody telling me what kind of job this is. This is a job which is based on the function we might have as artists in society. And this function could be that we do things which other people don't do. It could be as simple as that. So that we do experiments which we have somehow special permission for, because we don't need to fulfill some other obligations as other people have to do. And this even applies to the life you live. So the life you live, you can live in a different way. It's a kind of Freischein. What could that be in English? Like a kind of, like a carte blanche. What is that in English? Like you can do things on an experimental basis with you and other people that you work with together, and you can even create artworks, but that's not necessarily what you have to do in order to find out if this works or not. So in some way, even an exhibition I see as a kind of model situation for something that could possibly be in a society, but which is not. And then maybe coming back to what you just said about being here. Well, here, obviously, is very interesting just in relation to what I said, because being here means being in a place where things are changing quite rapidly, and you wonder, like, in which direction is this going? And which potential do you have here? So the potential you have here is that you don't have these incrustated structures that are already like totally, sitting there very heavy, and there's not very much you can do about. Here you still have a certain, like an area where you can do things. So I would propose to take this chance that you have here and make something out of it, which is not like what the others have been doing. Because, you can also start to build as many museums and, I don't know, like create the same kind of art scene, but maybe it would be better even if this could be more experimental and you try out things that we need to do. Because times are changing. Now we don't need so many museums anymore. We need to do things that help us to live in the time that we're in. I stop here.
No, I love that, and that goes kind of along with the laboratory of Dawat Abgha. I know that you want to comment on that.
This is important what to say. Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
I mean, that's one of the very, very important idea, because there's like what you said about no structure. Could be a really good chance here that to see what will be a place that can start this practice of artistic effort, of organic growth, of cultural, to shape it without, it doesn't come from system up to down. So let it come from down up, and it can create its own things without frames. So what about the art can come from the walls to outside? Noor Riyadh is a good example because it's allow us to visit all of the city and the valleys and go to the south and to the north. That what about if this could be the shape of something can happen in the future? Thank you for highlighting that. It's really a dream if we can go out from this system of walls. Of course, not against. No, it's from this to build and more. Art, I don't know, sometimes I say art can be part of everything in our life, can be in everything, where art maybe can bigger role. And if it's go organically, like this idea, and let's shape itself, it can be the experimental methods.
So maybe just a question to both of you, because I think one of the interesting observations I had in your conversation, and at first encounter, one of the questions they both asked each other was, did you go to art school? And I found that interesting because I think there was a mutual fascination with the work that they've both done. Ahmed and I spent some time talking about Carsten's work, and Carsten spent a lot of time asking Ahmed, going on a tour about his work, and that question really triggered a lot of other questions for me. And you both asked each other that question. I asked you, do you think you need to go to art school? Can you just give us your point of view? And because there are many artists here engaged that have both point of views, just a little bit of a point of view.
I'm not sure you want to hear this.
How does an artist go into this lab space? How do you start, exercising experiments? Do you need to be in art school to do that?
I don't know. I have not been in art school, so I can't really answer the question. So I don't know how it is to have been in art school, but I did like a little funny game. I'm still doing it. When I go to a group show, I look at the works first before I read who made it, and then I want to see if it was a man or a woman, and I want to see if they went to art school or not. And it's like this. The men and women thing gets more and more complicated. It's like almost impossible nowadays to get a good opinion about that. But the art school thing, you can still see. So, and then if you think like, some artists have the proportion of artists who have not gone to art school and have had a major impact, if I may say like this, on the evolution of especially contemporary art is quite high. So if we are really, I feel sometimes like an amateur because I didn't go to art school, but then the way how I work, I don't need to learn this through art school. I need to learn this through other things. And I studied agricultural sciences, so something I don't even know why I did this really, because I'm not coming from a farmer's background, but I like the idea of producing food, and I thought it's kind of useful, so I wanted to study something, and this helped me in some way to understand, and then became a scientist, so it helped me to understand like a scientist. But then the best thing, if you want to become an artist from there, is to just say, okay, I do still the science in terms of experiment, but there's no more scientists. So there's no more, evaluation of the data. I just produce an experimental scenario in an ideal case, and then we see how this would be affecting other people. And if I may say one more thing, you spoke about participatory.
Yeah.
I don't like this word very much, because it means basically like there's two kinds of art. There's one you can touch and one you cannot touch. So right. Participatory is like, instead you just have this object there standing, you can do something with it. But that's not enough. I think, it's more interesting to think about the other people who are there.
I love that.
So if you make them do things, which can be participatory, I very often have this, when I go and see like more classical art, which is like an object or something, that, I see me looking at this, but I also see the other people who are next to me. I can't forget about them. Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting to do artworks that include these other people who happen to be there by chance. And I don't think it's participatory because it's also voyeuristic in a way. You're there and you see the others doing things that have to do with what is there. Like this.
No, I wanted to also kind of dig into when you left the agricultural sciences. Can you give us a little bit of a peek hole of when you went into art? Just a bit of a storyline there. So
people ask me often, like, how was it? How did you become an artist? And my answer is, it was very easy, because it was very easy. Because I hadn't been in art school. If I would have been in art school, you say, oh no, not like one more of these guys, sending his dossier or whatever, like trying to be. So I just wrote a letter to some curators that were making a show in Hamburg, and I said, like, I read about your exhibition. I'm a scientist. I'm at the university in Kiel. I have an idea for you. Do you want to hear my idea? And they said, yes, that sounds interesting. So come and present your idea. I did, and they said, we do it. And next thing I knew, I was in a show with Jenny Holzer. So it was great.
Ahmed, I would ask you the same question.
Okay.
And I'd ask you also, similarly along the lines of art school and in a context here where there's a deep history of practicing art, but maybe not as institutionalized, formalized in larger scales. If you think art school is something, is a line or a trajectory that the artist should take. But first, give us also a little bit of a history on when you transitioned into art, your first works.
Yeah, I didn't study art. But also, I want to be fair. At that time, there was no art school, and here in Saudi Arabia, like a full time, like just art school, like College of Art. There was no art school, but I was looking.
It wasn't a choice whether
It
you went to
wasn't a
art school
choice.
or
So
not.
to be fair,
Yes.
you know, like so. But at the same time, I study medicine. I go with the medicine, and during this time, I was doing art. Doesn't show it, but for me, it was a very close group of intellectuals, writer, novelist, philosopher. Very local, but it's like kind of intuition. It give me an confidence that expression of yourself with the material could be anything. I didn't define it as art. I defined it as my statement, my things that represent what I want to say. So that was a very important momentum when I tried. So also one thing that I discovered later, that the idea of artist graduating from art school, sometimes I thought a lot, they looking for what's exhibition or how I find my perfect residency, art residency, for example. So it's again, we come back to the idea of structural system that built in front of eye. It's like doing this to your eye. So I didn't see where is the road. I think art is about an open idea between crossing philosophy, crossing geography, crossing all of science and social studies, societies. It's an open idea to think beyond. I didn't ever do any residency in my life. When I want to do residency, I travel for one project to one place. I design my residency, my curriculum, my idea, my practice, my things by myself. Why not? It's a residency. Without calling the art residency, for example. If I want to do artwork, I didn't even plan, I will show it in this museum or this exhibition or this Spinelli. I don't know. I do it because I really want to do it first. So that's the beginning. It was really good. It was really because it's, you know, I like sometimes also the idea that things can be happen with challenge more than things that already, you know, like ready-made things for us, easy. So maybe this is something, but I agree. Maybe art school can change. Maybe art school can be an idea for to be changed, to be more open, more engagement with the science, because there is a lot of cases around the world that art may be asking for engagement with all of the type of scientific labs and sociological study, socio-political study. It's really becoming beyond the art school itself. Yeah. So maybe this idea. So I don't want to be too much say no art school because I didn't practice. I don't know what is it because my life was out of this. There was no art school, no choices like that. But medicine teach me a lot. I learned from medicine, it's not only science. It's also stand between subjectivity and objectivity. Art do the same. It's a stand between subjectivity and objectivity. So maybe this is the answer.
It's interesting because I think your studio and many artist studios here serve as an informal classroom. So not just visitors coming in, but to artists that are collaborating.
Also, alternative learning can be a future. Even in educational system now, internet, YouTube. I learn photography from YouTube more than the book of school, for example. It's full of information. Data is everywhere.
No, very interesting. So I wanted to also, I think we've gone back a little bit, and I'm just wondering on time, so that I don't go over and I can open it up to discussion, because, you know, I think it's fair to jump into questions to these two incredible artists. Just to jump a little bit to now and get a little bit of an idea of your artwork in Noor Riyadh. And so some of us can hear about the science and the process and the method behind it, and maybe how that goes along with the method of how you produce your other works. Also today you guys were talking about your process of production and thought and delving really into it. But give us a sense of this artwork in Noor Riyadh, and maybe give us a bit of clarity on the conversations of decimals and the most complicated clock in the world.
Yes, well, you know, these things that I made, the slides, And also the mushrooms, they are like a kind of stamp on my forefront, because people think I only do that. So I'm constantly trying to do new things and try to get them up to a level where they get, certain amount of, like, can I say, response. But it's very hard, once you have your trademark thing, it's really hard to get away with it. So I'm trying and I'm trying, like, so the clock, like, no, I don't know. I've been doing a few, I like the idea of changing time, because we have a way of measuring time that we think is time, but I like the idea of changing time as such already. So, we have a rough feeling of time going by, and we know that we have something inside us which is related to our life, which is a kind of biological clock. So everything alive has a biological clock. Even a bacterium has a biological clock. And interestingly, scientists, science in all respect, but there's many things that science have no answer for, like consciousness, life, and especially like this subdomain, which is like the biological clock. What, like that I get like white hair is not because my body is not able to produce black hair or brown hair anymore. It's because it's meant to be like this. It's some genes probably that make the hair grow white. So the biological clock knows at a certain time it's time for the hair to get white, which I'm then signaling to other people I'm in a certain age, and also like, I'm approaching death more than a child, like this. Let's put it like that. So the biological clock is something, it's like a mystery. Nobody knows what it is. It's there. It makes us all tick and all die, by the way, but it's not explicable. So this funny thing, so the clock is more about life than about time. So the life thing is the real interesting question. What is life? So that's now from Diderot in his famous letters to Alembert, he looks at the chicken egg, and the chicken egg, when it's fertilized, is not really alive, is it? Because nothing really happens. Something happens when you take the chicken egg and you move it in a certain way, and you give it a certain temperature. Then suddenly life arises, and a little chicken is starting to grow inside the egg. Where is that coming from? And how is that going away? So I'm very interested in questions that I have no answer for. And this work here is both a proposition to another form of counting time, which is decimal time, based on the idea that you have then, instead of 24 hours, 10 hours, with 100 minutes and 100 seconds each for the same day and night cycle that we have now in our conventional time. But it's also the proposition of, experiencing time in another way, maybe redefining it, thinking about it as a kind of maybe we are just slaves of this life form that comes through time. So there's like so many things we don't understand. It's more pointing at these, what you said before, the laboratory of doubt, pointing at these things that we don't really know what it is. And so it's a form that visualizes our incapacity to understand. And actually many of my works are monuments of incomprehensibility.
As this one. I walked into your work about 6 times, and there was a child and a young adult, and he was asking what the lights meant, and he said he felt like it was a flashing stop sign, and I found that interesting just in hearing your description of time. But do the lights mean anything?
But like you said before, I can also give you a completely different explanation tomorrow or even now. Up to you. I don't know if you agree, but a good artwork cannot be like, we cannot even speak about it. It's something that works in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's one thing which I find interesting, that there seems to be like a language of art. There's concept medicine, they have like real strong concepts. In our case, maybe not so much. But there's still a language of art,
Yes.
which is not a spoken language, which is a poetic language, of course, but not in words necessarily. can be part of it, but
Yes.
there's something, that is developed together with the whole, cultural phenomenon of making art, and that's a language in some way.
I wanted to also just open up the conversation, just to wrap it, to see if Ahmed, you had any questions for Carsten, and if Carsten had any questions for Ahmed, to just give also a little continuity to the conversation you were having before and or now, before we open it up to the audience.
Yeah, we was talking about, I was really now interesting about the idea of questioning unknown sometimes. We open question. It's sometimes also beautiful and very important for us to keep asking about what we don't know. Idea of life, because it's a chicken, like the egg without life, and with the temperature and things, it's a change to the life. But different, like the 21 famous, I don't know if you heard, but one friend curator yesterday was talking to me about, they call it 21 gram. It's the difference between body, life, and death. It's just a small weight. Yeah, or DMT, it's like the things that hormone, it's the trigger of life. So all of these studies that our science, the science and people try to open, it's really interesting. It's still unknown. That's the way that we need to know. We have in our Islamic culture or an Arab old culture, there is something called the soul, the study of the soul. What is soul? Are we body or soul? What is the type of... All of this is really also part of interest. So, I mean, that's one of the things that when I read about you usually a lot, questioning of unknown is something really great as a definition for art. I don't know if that's something maybe you want to say more about it, because this is very interesting. Unknown, yeah.
Unknown.
Oh, yeah,
Unknown,
and questioning
yes.
of unknown, no answers.
Yes, I don't think there's so many things really, because I don't know if you agree, but our capacity to understand obviously must have its limits. No, we cannot understand how it is to be a bat, for instance. Yeah. There's a famous philosopher, Thomas Nagel, who wrote about this. It's a famous article from the 1970s. So we can never understand how it is to live with echolocation and to, live in the world of the bat. Yeah. But that's not the point. The point is more like our understanding as a tool, as a method, I believe, has its total limits. So we don't get any further with some things. And the most striking example for me has always been consciousness.
Yes.
Because consciousness is what we all have, and what makes us probably most human of all the things we do. But consciousness is a complete mystery, because there's no, scientists, they say the neurons in this part of the brain, they're firing in a certain way, and that means that you're conscious. But actually, it's more, when you fall asleep, the consciousness goes away, and then when you wake up, it comes back again.
Yes.
But what is this? We don't know. So I think, for instance, like we spoke at the beginning, Riyadh, you have a fantastic possibility to make something new. So like, for instance, an artistic research center for the incomprehensible or the unknown or something, that would be something really interesting, I think.
Yeah. No, I love that. And is there anything for Ahmed that you'd like to ask? That
I was really intrigued by he makes this new work, but you have to explain it. But it's really like it's a fascinating project. Were there some images over this? No.
Oh, the Al-Ula, the Mirage. Yeah, it's not yet visualized. It's not on this slide, but it's published. I think they must have audience know. But if there is any question,
so I think they were
I can answer
battling with the questions of how
because
do you...
it's still under, like in progress.
Yeah.
But of course, there is some question I can answer. Some of questions coming in the future.
Because you make something visible.
Invisible.
Which is really not there, but
Yes.
it's still there, obviously,
Yes.
because you see it.
Yeah.
And you make it visible in a very pronounced way.
Yeah.
So this idea of it's almost magic in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's very physical
Physics,
phenomena
yeah,
based
it's,
on a book that is 1,000 years old.
Yes.
And so, but it's difficult to explain if you haven't seen it like in the model where you can experience it.
So I think on that you will invite everyone, Ahmed, if you allow me,
at
one point
please.
to come to the studio and experience some of the things in testing, that incredible test lab. And I think what's interesting about that discussion as well is not just how do you make that magic, but how do you showcase that magic so it's understood, or so it's felt, and it's
Yeah, and here it's physics. It's you see the illusion image like a real in front of you, but it's not there. But for me also the artwork itself, it's as a meditation. It's like a prayer center. It's like a meditation experience. This is also a part of art.
This artwork plays on the mirage.
Yeah, it's
so
about the mirage. But we experience when we in the desert, or someone drive the car in the hot, and everyone knows what's mean hot here. So you see the water in front on the road. Yeah. So the idea of the project, what about that we create this in real? So you see, for example, oasis, you see something real. What about if we see ourselves as a mirage? So that's the concept that I'm working with now in Al-Ula.
I think, and we'll open up to questions very soon. But I wanted to also, talk about the role that Noor Riyadh, and like you rightfully said, that it takes you, Ahmed, beyond the exhibition walls into different areas of Riyadh that I myself have never been to in the 3 years I've lived here. Some of the wadis, some of the interactive spaces, some of the classic walls that we pass through every day that now take a different shape or form, and the potential that this place plays as a laboratory ground, but also the role that it plays. It's no longer, looking at this country and seeing how we dispel the myths about who we are, but dispelling the myths about the role that we play in sparking new kind of perspectives. And I really give so much credit to the Noor Riyadh team here and the Riyadh art team for starting these discussions with two incredible artists. And you don't see that all the time, where you're really jumping straight into the perspectives of how these artists see the world. And if I could end with that, Ahmed, just on your last work, if you do visit the studio, seeing the works at Salam, and just to give a little bit of an idea of what that is, because I think that perspective and that play on perspectives is so important. And then I'd love to open it up to questions. Please do jump in. You have two incredible minds and artists here. Ahmed, if you want to just give a bit of a comment on your last work for the studio. Salam.
Salam. It's made by. It's
look
word
back.
Salam. It's mean peace. Yeah. It's made by the plastic gun caps, the one that we remember in childhood. So I remove I make it all together in a wall. Then I start to remove it until I wrote Salam, which is mean peace. Yeah. So it has this contradiction about that time, how it's difficult. Sometimes peace has become more difficult than. As much we develop in, technology and things and communication and things, we are looking to more of the space, and it's look like we still need to explore more. And I think this is, that's the artwork, and to think again about, to rethink again, usually about ourselves and our, existence as a human being, more than the future of, things that can make everything happy, maybe economically or scientifically, whatever, but we are still the core of that. How can we come back to ourselves? That's like a thought now, maybe. Yeah. And everyone has his interpretation to the work as well. Incredible. It's open. Yeah.
Well, thank you. What a incredible note to end on, peace. So I will pass the mic now to the audience. Please jump in with questions.
Good evening. My name is Faisal Fahid from Kuwait. I'm a photographer. I have a question regarding the points that you mentioned regarding art school. I found them very interesting. But what do you both think are, in your opinion, the core fundamentals, whether it be characteristics or skills, that all artists should have, whether it be emerging artists or experienced artists?
Well, what they have in common. First of all, maybe about the art school, I don't think one should abolish art schools, or maybe I think, but but in a way, it's also good. It's just like we live in a time where there's so much art being done, there's so many exhibitions, there's so many museums being built, there's so many artists being formed that it's too much. It became mainstream in like a short amount of time, from some specialist occupation to like a complete mainstream thing. So the whole thing has changed, and that's a completely different discussion. But what an artist has to do, in my opinion, is, I think, comes maybe more to what I said at the beginning, that you do the things that the other people don't do. That's a very good beginning, because you are there to find out, I don't know, you don't, find out really, but you expose yourself and maybe other people who come to see your work to a situation that you don't normally have. So my problem is really more the representational artwork, something that is an object of some kind made by somebody that is exposed in a certain way and somehow should transfer some form of meaning. I don't think this is really so powerful at the moment anymore. There are other forms of working which I believe are much more powerful and which could be also more dangerous, because this situation that we have now is, because it's so mainstream, it's also very lame in a way. It's very tame, I would even say. It's kind of lost its teeth. We need to get the teeth back, because that's what art is about, no? So I think artists should have teeth.
Yeah, 100% I agreed. And also, if I will add something, I will add it as myself telling you what my thought, but it's not some, what I'm not doing a statement here, but I'm telling you a thoughtful advice from my side that don't allow maybe this structural system to shape you. Rather than that, I think we should shape what we want, shape the future, shape our practice and art. Let's shape it like what we want. And yeah, art school, let's use it. It's art school existed, but if it has a system, thank you, but we have to shape the future. We have to shape the art. Because things now change very fast. Everything's, you cannot even follow what's the change happening every day. So art is also part of this change. Art life, art practices, art as a result, it's more engaging, more communal, more, and more coming, yeah. So rather than system to shape us, we should shape the system for the future. That's maybe the idea.
So with that, I think the discussion on art and school and the trajectory for artists and how we analyze time, the unknown, the invisible, has all left us with a lot to think about. And I think I was telling you that, you know, I would echo the same thing as Ahmed said, not to let things necessarily shape you, but to inform you. I studied many things from business to policy, and my father always said, read a poem before you sleep. So that creative thing is the last thing that you feel before you dream. So with that, I want to thank everyone who's attended. I encourage everyone to go visit the works. For the next 3 weekends, these talks will be happening in this space, and will get even more exciting. So I encourage everyone to attend and participate as well. And with that, please do join me in applause for Carsten and Ahmed. Thank you so much.